Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Sarah. I'm part of the education department here at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California, and we're so happy you are joining us today. We are going to be exploring a really cool animal today. One of the smartest, most fascinating animals that we can find. We are going to explore octopus. Now, if you are watching live and you find that you have some questions about this animal, you can text us at our text line. Our number is right here. It's 562-286-38. So you can text your questions or your observations to that number. And if you're watching this program after we've already aired, so we're not live anymore, but you find you still have questions, you can go ahead and email us at live@lbaop.org. And we'll take all your questions and we'll try and answer them as soon as we can. Excellent. So let's get started. We are going to be learning about this really cool animal, an octopus. But we want to take a look a little bit more about what an octopus is. So I'm going to go over to my camera right here, my document camera, really quick. And we're going to pull up an image. I've written down this breakdown of what these animals are. So starting with an invertebrate. Have you heard that term before? Think about that word, invertebrate. Now, you may have heard the word vertebrae or vertebra, and that is your backbone. So if you take your hands and you feel along your back at your spine, all those little bumps, those are your vertebrae. Now, if we put this in front of the word vertebrate, that means no or not. So an invertebrate is an animal with no bones. So an octopus is going to be in this category of animals with no bones. When we see animals with no bones, their bodies can be really soft and squishy, and that's sort of how we can characterize our octopus body. Now, this group of invertebrates is one of the largest groups of animals on the planet. It actually is the largest group of animals. So we can think of all these animals that have bones, like cats and dogs and whales, and sharks have a skeleton. It's not bone, but it's a skeleton. But there's actually more animals that fall into this invertebrate category than in any other category. So we're going to break this category down, trying to get to our octopus. So the next way we break it down is to mollusks. Everyone say that word mollusks together. Mollusks. Now, mollusk is another large group, and what a mollusk has, there's two characteristics that most mollusks share, and that's going to be a hard shell and a soft body. So that hard shell protects the soft body, and that's a characteristic that most mollusks will share. But even this group, mollusks, is a pretty large group, so we can break that group down into three more categories we have right here, starting with gastropods right over here, and then we've got bivalves and cephalopods. Now, bivalves is sort of the odd one out. It doesn't have that pod in it. And a bivalve is an animal with two shells that open and close like this. So think about your clams, your mussels, those animals that have two shells, bi meaning two, that open and close. Now, if we look at gastropod and cephalopod, here's cephalopod and gastropod, they both share that pod in common. Have you heard that word before, pod? Think about what a pod might be. Now, you might immediately think of like an iPod, or I know there's a storage unit kind of called a pod, but we want to think more of like a tripod. Think about a tripod that holds a camera. It has three, what? Legs or feet. So pod in this case means foot. Now for gastropods, right here, I like to think of it if you think of the word gas. Now when you have gas, where do you feel it? Not where it comes out of your body, but where do you feel it in your body? You feel it in your stomach. So gastropods are what we call stomach-footed animals, which means their stomach's right here and their foot is right below it, just like a snail like this. Now this one is called a chestnut cowrie. It's a local species we find here in our tide pools. It's hiding among all these sea urchins. And it basically, all its organs, its body sits right on top of its foot. And its foot is that sort of sticky part that helps it hold onto the rocks. So those are going to be our gastropods. Now, if we look over to cephalopods, so we know that, let me get out of the way, pod is foot. And then I like to look at this word halo right here. So when we hear the word halo, you might be thinking of video games, but think about an angel. They wear a halo where? On their head. So they wear that halo on top of their head. So cephalo means head. So a cephalopod is a head-footed animal. So think about, here's your head, and right below it is your foot. Now, what animal do you think falls into the cephalopod category? That's right, an octopus, just like the animal we're going to talk about today. So here is a really great example of an octopus. This is called a two-spot octopus. It's got one spot right here, this blue spot. You may have thought it was its eye, but it's actually a spot. Its eye is right above it over here. And then there's another spot on the other side, giving it its name, two-spot octopus. But the octopus, all their arms or their feet are these tentacles. And then this sort of loopy part right here is basically all their organs. It's their head. So their head and their feet are right below. Now we're going to take a look at some of the different body parts that are special to our octopus and to other cephalopods. So let's see, Dana, I've got Dana here in the studio, and she's going to be helping changing all these images. And then I have Cynthia answering your question. So Dana is going to bring up some other images of different body parts of an octopus so we can get to know this animal a little bit better. So I said it's got its tentacles and it's got its head, but there's some really special parts of this animal. So let's take a look maybe at its tentacles a little bit closer, its arms for our octopus. There we go. That's a great picture right here. So this is a picture of our giant Pacific octopus. Now you might hear people call them tentacles or arms. I know I was saying tentacles and arms back and forth. For our octopus, they have 8 arms. So our octopus, it's their arms. Now sometimes you might hear tentacles, and when we talk about tentacles, we're more referring to things on our squid. So a squid is a relative of an octopus, and squids have 10 appendages. 2 of them are tentacles, the rest are arms. So tentacles are really used for reaching and grabbing things, but then the arms are used for movement, and they're used for bringing things into the mouth or the rest of the body. So our octopus here has 8 arms. Now take a look at these arms. I'm going to step off the screen. You can watch our giant Pacific. What do you notice is special about these arms? What things do you notice on the arms, how they're moving? Take a moment, make some observations. Now, if you've noticed all of these circles all over, they kind of move, but they're all over their arms. Those are the octopus's suction cups. Now, we find suction cups on a lot of animals in the ocean. Octopus, squid, we even find them on snails and sea stars and sea urchins. And suction cups serve a really important purpose. They serve a lot of purposes. They have a lot of jobs in helping our animal. For our octopus, it helps them move. They help them hold on to things. So our octopus right here is sort of climbing along the glass. They're actually exploring. Because not only are those suction cups used to hold on to things, they are a sense organ. They help them sense things around them. We have 5 senses, right? We can use our hands, we can see things, we smell things, we hear things, we taste things. Our senses, they help us explore the world. When you go somewhere new, you look around, you might try and touch things and see how they feel. You might smell the place. It might smell different from somewhere else you were before. You might even taste things. That's how we explore the world around us. And our octopus will use all of those suction cups to explore. So they're not only feeling, but they're actually smelling with those suction cups as well. So they have smell receptors on those suction cups that help them find things around them, maybe find food, or find if there's another animal, maybe a predator around that they don't want to get involved with, and they can move away. So those suction cups are really important. They serve a lot of jobs for our octopus. Now right here, you can see on the side of our octopus, there we go, there's something opening and closing. So our octopus will use their arms and those suction cups to move, but sometimes an octopus might want to move really fast. Do you think they're going to run really fast through the ocean? Not really. They use something called a siphon. So let's take a look at what a siphon looks like on our octopus. All right. So we've got this really good video right here. This thing right here is a siphon. Now, it's kind of a silly looking thing right here in this picture, but the siphon serves a really important job for our octopus. So one, it helps them with something called jet propulsion. So if the octopus or a squid want to move really fast, just like here in this picture, step off screen, you can watch this picture as our squid goes shooting backwards. So what they do is they bring a lot of water into their body, into their mantle, that's the top part of their body, and then they force it out of that siphon, and it sends the squid or octopus shooting in the other direction. So it helps them move really fast if they are maybe hunting, or more if they're trying to get away from a predator, they're going to use jet propulsion to push themselves away. Think about it how if you blow up a balloon and then you let it go, what happens? It goes flying all around the room. And that's just similar to how the siphon works. They pull all this water in and then they force the water out through that little hole and it sends them moving backwards. So the siphon is used for jet propulsion. The siphon is also used to bring water into their body, adjust my mic, so that the animal can breathe. So they're taking in water so they can absorb that dissolved oxygen, help them breathe. They also use it to get rid of some things. What things do you think they want to expel from their body? Think about it. What might that animal want to get out of its body? I'm thinking of 2 different things. One of them is waste, right? Any living thing that takes in food has to expel waste. And so the octopus will use that siphon right there to get rid of waste. It's also going to use it for ink. So octopus and squid have a cool defense mechanism, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But they're going to use that siphon to get rid of the ink out of their body as a way to protect themselves. Now we're going to take a look at some of the relatives of our octopus, but first I have a couple questions to discuss. So we're going to take your questions, and then we'll learn about some of the relatives of our octopus. All right. Oh, why do they have such big heads? That is an excellent question. So that whole head isn't just their brain. So the brain of the octopus is actually right here in between the two eyes. So their brain is almost like a donut shape. It's sort of like a circle. And they've got their esophagus, their throat goes through it from their mouth all the way up into that big sort of bump part of their head right here. And this is basically a bag of all of their organs. So all of their organs on their inside, their digestive tract, all the reproductive organs, all of that stuff sits in that big old head. So that head is really important because it holds all of their body parts. All right. And, what do octopus eat? That's an excellent question. So octopus eat a range of things. They like different crustaceans, so shrimp or crabs. You might even see them eating fish. They have a wide range of things that they eat, kind of depending on the type of octopus. Great questions. Keep those questions coming. If you find you have other questions or observations, you can always text us. We put that number up again. Once again, it's 562-286-1838. Excellent. All right, so we talked a little bit about the different body parts of the octopus, about their arms, their suction cups. We talked a little bit about their head and their brain and siphon. Now let's see some of the relatives of octopus. They all have similar body parts, but they're all different kinds of cephalopods. So let's take a look at, this is a really cool one. So this one here is called a cuttlefish. Now I know that name sounds really cute. Makes it think you want to cuddle with it, right? He looks nice and squishy and cuddly, but it's actually C-U-T-T-L-E, so cuttlefish. And this is another cephalopod, and it does have that big sort of sack of its organs right here and its tentacles. Now something interesting about our cuttlefish is if we go back to the beginning of the class, when we talked about mollusks having a hard shell and a soft body, most of our cephalopods, not all of them, but most of our cephalopods have sort of left their shell behind. They have evolved, so they no longer need that shell. There is one we'll get to in just a sec that does have a shell, but our cuttlefish doesn't have a shell on the outside of its body. Instead, it has something called a cuttlebone that fits right into the top part of its head. So it gives it a little bit more structure. If you look at the cuttlefish compared to maybe that octopus we looked at before, where it looked like its head was kind of slumped over, the cuttlefish has a little bit more structure to its body because of that cuttlebone inside its body. Now, we have a really cool video of a cuttlefish eating. So we talked about things that they like to eat. And our cuttlefish, they eat smaller shrimp and other little crustaceans. And we talked about the difference between the arms and tentacles. So cuttlefish, they're going to use their tentacles to grab their food, and then they're going to bring it up to their mouth. So there's an arm and a tentacle. So another difference of arms or tentacles, take a look at this picture. What do you notice is the difference between these two? I notice that the thickness of them. Our arm right here is really thick, and then the tentacle is really skinny. Do you notice anything else? The suction cups. So arms, they are covered with suction cups all the way down. So all the way from where it meets the body to the very end, they're covered in suction cups. The tentacle, on the other hand, it's pretty smooth until the very end, almost like where our hand is. That's where they have all their suction cups. So they're really good for grabbing things and then bringing them to the arms, and then the arms can pull things apart or hold on really tight and bring food into the mouth. So let's take a look at that video of a cuttlefish eating. We can see its tentacles shoot out. It sees its prey. It sees a little shrimp. Boom. We'll watch it one more time just because it's so cool. Oh, here we got a close-up. There you go. Oh, that crab is a little scared. He sees that cuttlefish coming. So there's those long tentacles. It's pretty neat to see these animals eat. So they reach out those really long tentacles really fast to grab the food, and then they bring it to their arms and then into their mouth. Now, speaking of their mouth, we didn't quite cover their mouth, where that part is on these animals. So octopus and squid and cuttlefish, they have a beak for their mouth. Now, I have a plush octopus I'm going to grab. Helps us see. Oh, this is a good view to see with our giant Pacific octopus. It is moving. Oh, here we go. It's on the move. So once it plays over, at the very beginning, the first shot, you see in the middle of all the arms, right here is going to be where their mouth is. There you go, in the very middle, right there, is where their mouth is. And they have a beak. It looks very similar to a bird's beak. And we can actually go over to my document camera, and I have a squid's beak, and we'll take a look at what this looks like. All right. So this right here, it's kind of hard to see in this container, but that's kind of a good view. That is the beak of a squid. And it's very similar to an octopus beak, and it looks very similar to a bird's beak. So it's got two parts to it. We'll leave that there. So it's got two parts to it, and it can pierce. They eat shrimp and crabs that have sort of a harder exterior shell on its body, and that beak can pierce into that animal and take a bite of it. So that is the mouth of our octopus or squid or cuttlefish. So when they're using those tentacles to grab their food, they're bringing it to their arms, and then they bring it all the way into their mouth. So we talked about one of the relatives of an octopus is the cuttlefish. Now we have another relative, and this one does have a true shell. So just like mollusks that have a hard shell and a soft body, we have another relative, the Nautilus, just like this guy right here. This is another type of cephalopod that does have a hard shell, and I have two shells right here I can show you. So here is the shell of a Nautilus, and then we have a cross section right here. And this one is called a chambered Nautilus, just like the one in the picture. And they have this thing called a hood that's pulled over right here. It covers sort of the opening of the shell. They have their tentacles coming out right here. And then the shell is on the inside. Oh, this way. Shell is the inside. Now, if we look at the chambered Nautilus, I'm going to bring it a little bit closer to the camera right here. You can see all these chambers. That's how they get their name. Now, these chambers are really important, but why would they have these chambers? What do you think they're going to fill with these chambers? Think about what might they put in those chambers. If we look right here, the front part of their body is right here, so it's probably not going to be their body. What else might they need to store in their shell? Now, when I've asked this question before, sometimes we get their body or extra food, which would be a good thing, right? Taking some snacks with you as you go, or storing their babies. Those are all great suggestions. But what they're actually going to store in these chambers is air. So for these animals, they can move forward and backwards in the water, but it takes a lot of energy if they want to move up or down in the water column. And as they grow, their bodies get bigger and heavier, and so they might weigh more, help making them sink a little bit more in the water. And so they're going to use these chambers, fill them with air, to help them rise or sink in the water column. So that is another relative of our octopus, the chambered Nautilus. Now, before we move on, we have some questions coming in. So I'm going to take a look at these questions, and then we'll talk about some of the adaptations, some of the cool things about octopus that help them survive and help them make them one of the coolest animals in the ocean. So the question is, how big can octopus get? Ooh, that's an excellent question. So the largest octopus is the giant Pacific octopus, like we have here. This is our giant Pacific octopus. His name is Godzilla. And they can get about 13 feet if we were to stretch all their tentacles out from the tip of one tentacle all the way to the other tentacle. They get about 13 feet long. And I think they can weigh about up to 110 pounds. It's a really big animal. It's really hefty. There's a lot of muscle and organs in there when these animals get really, really big. All right. Anika wants to know, what do squid eat? That's an excellent question. So squid eat things like fish or shrimp or other little floating animals that they can catch, just like we saw in that picture. The cuttlefish, which is a relative, was eating shrimp. And squid will eat shrimp as well. They might eat small fish as well. And Henry wants to know, how many kinds of octopus are there? That's a great question. There are about 300 different species of octopus. And why, this is a great question, why do they shoot ink? Now this question will lead us into our next kind of segment where we talk about some of the adaptations that octopus have to help them survive in the ocean or in their habitat. And we'll start with that question about ink. So think about it. This animal is going to shoot ink out of its body. Why might an animal shoot ink out of its body? Think about it. Let's see. We talked the octopus is an invertebrate, right? It doesn't have anything hard in its body. And even though mollusks have a hard shell and a soft body, our octopus doesn't really have that hard shell anymore. So its body is all soft and squish. So why might it need to shoot ink out of its body? Let's think for a moment. Do you think it's making a painting? Not really. So they're going to use that ink for protection. Now I think we have a cool video of an octopus shooting out that ink. If we were to look at the ink sac, oh, here it is. So watch this octopus that little puff. There we go. There's that ink. So the octopus is hiding sort of in the crevices of the rock, and it shoots out that ink. It's sort of like a distraction. So they shoot that ink out for protection, and they can use it in a couple different ways. One, it can be a distraction. There's this big puff of, kind of looks like a cloud of smoke, and the animal might get confused, and the octopus can get away. There are some octopus where the ink has some toxins in it, and when it hits the animal, the predator, in the face, it kind of messes with that animal, that predator's smell sensors, and so the octopus can't be smelled anymore if that ink affects the smell sensors of that predator. And so the octopus can get away, and the other animal is left kind of looking around for an animal can't really smell anything. So the main reason for the ink is for protection. So all of our octopus species are going to be ones that ink, and if we were to look inside their body, the ink sac is really tiny, but it's concentrated. So once it hits the water, it sort of expands into this big puff or cloud of ink, and it distracts the animal so the octopus can get away. Now, we kind of saw it a little bit in that other picture, but another really cool adaptation of the octopus, one of sort of the coolest things about them, is the fact that they can color change. They are one of the most magnificent color changers in the ocean, maybe the world, and that's because they have all these cells on their body called chromatophores. Now, chromatophores are color-changing cells, and we'll get a good image of our chromatophores up close on a squid. And these chromatophores, these cells, here we go. We can see them moving back and forth. So these cells are going to open and close, and as they open and close, they change the color on the skin of these animals. Now, they can't change just any color. Most octopus kind of range in the browns, greens, reddish kind of colors, but even more than changing colors, octopus can also change texture. So their body might look really smooth 1 minute, and the next minute they might look really bumpy and spiky. So changing color and texture is a really cool adaptation that the octopus has so that they can camouflage and blend into their surroundings. So we're going to bring up a video of an octopus that not only changes color but also changes texture, and you can get an idea of just how quickly they're able to change color, to change texture, to blend into their surroundings, to get away from predators. So we've got a couple different videos. So here's one. There's our octopus. All right, we're going to play this one over. Did you see it? There it is. So that octopus is almost completely blended in to that kind of rocky surface that it's hiding in, and then changes color. And off it goes, using its siphon to kind of scoot its body away. So we've got another video here. So octopus is red and kind of smooth. Whoa! Did you catch that? That octopus went from smooth and a dark red to sort of yellowish, whitish, and spiky. See it again. Whoa. I think that's one of the coolest videos I've seen of an octopus. So they have those chromatophores, which help them change color. And then the way they're able to make those spikes on their body is they have this sort of net of muscles that contract and they pull, and it pulls the skin up into those little spikes to allow them to change texture. And that way an octopus can not only blend in to different colors, but it can blend into a rock, if a rock is smooth, or into some corals, or whatever the texture of their habitat is, they're able to change their body to blend in, and that protects them from predators. Now, in the cephalopod family, these animals change color for a couple different reasons. For octopus, the main reason that they're going to change color and texture is to blend in to their surroundings, to hide from predators. For animals like squid and cuttlefish, they might be changing colors more for communication. Think about it, they can't talk the way we can. So they're going to change color as a way to communicate with each other, maybe letting them know where food is, or if there's a predator coming, or if they're marking their territory and they don't want anyone around. They might change colors to let other animals know as a warning, or just kind of heads up, be aware, I'm over here in my space. So there's a lot of different reasons that these animals might change color. All right, we have a couple more questions coming in. How long do octopus live? Ooh, this is a great question. It's sort of a really interesting question for our octopus. So the giant Pacific octopus probably has the longest lifespan of octopus. They live about 3 to 5 years. For most octopus, their lifespan's only about 2 to 3 years long. Now that sounds really sad for these animals, but the reason that their lifespan is so short is they mature really quickly, and then they have one goal in life, pretty much, it's just to lay eggs. So octopus are mature after about 2 years. They'll lay their eggs, the females will lay their eggs, and then the females will spend a couple months cleaning the eggs and protecting them. They'll blow fresh water over their eggs. They'll make sure no predators are going to eat their eggs. They'll make sure they're clean and safe. And then once the eggs hatch, sadly, that's when the octopus dies. Their end of their life happens right after they're cared for those eggs because they didn't take time to care for themselves. They weren't eating, they were just protecting those eggs. So sadly, that's just the end of their life. They only live a couple years. All right, Christina wants to know, what is Octopus ink made of? So it's made of melanin. It's a highly concentrated melanin solution. Melanin is what gives our skin different color. And so it's all packed into that little packet, and then when it mixes with the water, it makes that big, are we good to see it again? There's that ink. It's really cool. We do squid dissections here at the aquarium, and we'll break open the squid's ink sac, and we actually can write with it, but it actually stains clothes. I've been out on a boat and we caught some squid, and I got some ink on my shoe, and it never ever came out. No matter how many times you wash it, it stains. So it's really concentrated. It's a really thick solution. People also eat squid ink. They use it in restaurants to color pasta. So there's things on menus called squid ink pasta, and it gives that pasta a black color and a little bit of a salty taste. All right, we have a couple more questions. Jacob wants to know, where do they lay their eggs and how? That is an excellent question. So it depends on the animal. Octopus will lay their eggs. For octopus like the GPO, they're going to lay it wherever they can find a safe place. So if it's in a cave, on a rock, somewhere safe from other animals. And it's going to be the females who are laying the eggs. The male and the female will come together, and then the female will lay their eggs wherever it's safe. For squid, they will lay their eggs usually on the sand. So we have some footage. Do we have the footage of the squid eggs? No. So you can look it up. There's some really cool pictures of basically a beach of squid eggs. They're just covering the beach because they can lay up to 70,000 eggs at a time. So they're going to lay all these eggs. The female will create this egg sac inside her body. She'll release that egg sac, attach it to a surface, and then there'll just be a beach full of these squid eggs until they all hatch and they go out into the ocean. How many suction cups are in one octopus? Ooh, that's a great question. It really depends on what type of octopus. For our giant Pacific octopus, they can have up to over 2,000 suction cups covering their arms. Take a look at our octopus here, our GPO. They've got suction cups all over, all the way to the very tippy end of their arms. And so there's lots and lots of suction cups. Excellent. These are some great questions that came in. Now we've got a couple minutes left on our octopus program, and I want to talk about how smart these animals are. So octopus are extremely smart animals. We've talked already about how they can change color, how they can blend in, they use ink for protection, but they're very intelligent animals. And when we have octopus here at the aquarium, we have two-spot octopus, we have red octopus, we have giant Pacific octopus, and we also have big eye octopus. And we want to make sure that we are flexing those animals' brains. And so we'll give our animals what we call enrichment. So sometimes we'll put their food in different containers and try and get them to find their food and pull it out. We've put them in Mr. Potato Heads before. You put it in the back, put the Mr. Potato Head in the tank with the animal, and wait for them to get that food. What? We're going to bring up a picture of one of the Mr. Potato Heads that we gave to one of our octopus. Just give us a minute while we find that picture. But it's really neat to watch these animals. They're basically reason and try and figure out how to get inside these toys that we give them. Here is one of our Mr. Potato Heads that we gave our octopus, and you can see the tentacle right here reaching around to try and smell, to feel, and figure out how to get to the inside of that Mr. Potato Head to get their food. Now we have another video we can watch of one of our octopus. It's a little red octopus with one of our aquarists, JJ. And an aquarist is someone who takes care of our fish and our invertebrates and our sharks here at the aquarium. And JJ was giving our octopus some enrichment. So she was giving that octopus sort of a challenge for them to get their food, and that helps them keep their brains really healthy. So take a look at this video. So there's our octopus got in to that container for their food, and then they didn't want to be disturbed while they were eating. Goodbye. So here you go. You can see JJ putting that shrimp into that little box. She's putting that box into this bucket and taking the lid off of the container that holds the red octopus, who can already sense there's something there. So the octopus is using their tentacle. They're smelling in the water. They're smelling for their food. They know there is food inside because they can smell it. So now the octopus just has to figure out how to get inside this container. Oh, they found it. They popped it open. And inside the container that octopus goes. So it's really neat. These animals are extremely smart, and it's really cool to watch them figure out ways to get into their those little contraptions and find their food. Well, we are about out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today to learn all about octopus. If you find you have more questions, go ahead and email us at live@lbaop.org, and we'll take care of your questions. We also have more programming coming later today. We have another program at 1 o'clock where we are going to be learning about, I think, wetlands. Yep. Jen is going to be talking all about wetland habitat. So join us at 1 o'clock. Hope to see you then. If not, have a good rest of your day.